and then jumps down to the 1.4 from 2.2. So that's a massive absorption rate. And that's a cue for everybody who's looking that you need to look at the downtown core, because it's starting to move, and it's starting to move very quickly. It's absorbing everything, and the prices are going to start to follow very shortly. Welcome, everybody, for another series of the Investor Market Optics. This is the November edition, and here you have with you Brian, who is a strategic investor, a coach, and someone who has a lot of experience in investing, and myself, a real estate broker, and somebody who's in the trenches every single day and seeing the real estate market up close. And today we are going to talk about a really cool, part one of my favorite things to talk about is going through the deep dive with the market stats and trying to understand the ins and the outs, knowing what's going on in different cities and also knowing what's going on in different property types. What we talked about last week, if you guys did not get the chance to tune in, was it was about FOMO and the effects of parents gifting in this market today. And if you did not get to watch that episode, feel free to reach out to me and I can send you a recording of it. Also, what we're going to be talking about in the next couple of weeks is the reemergence of the investors in the market, and also the potential effects of interest rates and the pressure on price, and who's going to win between these two things because of the low supply. Brian, how are you doing?
I'm doing fabulous, Omar. You know me, I'm a data-driven investor. I am not an emotional-based investor. I don't invest from the headlines. I invest from the down in the deep end of the pool. So I love these. I always learn something on these sessions with you as you share your infinite knowledge about this. And I hope the people listening realize how fortunate they are to be able to have this data at their fingertips, and us sending this out on a monthly basis, because this is what drives the investors like the Elon Musks and the Warren Buffetts and all that sort of stuff is data. So without further ado, man, enlighten me. What's going on out there?
Great. No, 100%. It's we're going to start off talking about the detached market. And let's see the charts up there. So what you guys have here is you have 3 months, the last 3 months, August, September, and October. And we're going to be able to look at the sales and the year-over-year growth of the sales. We're going to look at the median price, the year-over-year growth of the median price, and the months of inventory. So, detached after the pandemic is always a very interesting chart to look at because of the insane growth that has been taking place. And
these could be 5-year numbers with some of these regions, never mind year-over-year numbers. And of course, Durham still leading the way. Go Durham, go Durham.
We will see, Brian. So as in every fall, we typically expect to see a bit of a growth spurt that we see in the market, and this year was no exception, right? You'll see that all the markets in general grew in sales, and also, prices have gone up, supply has tightened. So that's a trend that has been true across the board. But I'm going to focus on a few things. First of all, I'm going to draw the comparison between the city of Toronto and the 905 region, which includes Halton, Peel, York, and Durham in this example. So if we look at the main comparison between these two groups, we will notice that the city of Toronto is doing a little bit better in sales. The number of sales, they're moving faster than the growth that we're seeing in the 905. But up until today, we still see the growth in price being higher in the 905 region, which is crazy. I mean, if I was to make a bet, I would have bet a long time ago that we would have started to, the market starts to subside and things start to slow down a little bit, but it still keeps on going strong. And to my surprise, for sure, the one explanation for something like that is that, price is always a lagging indicator to the sales. You'll always see sales go up first, and then within a few months, you start to see the prices start to rise. So it seems like there's still a bit of a runway for the 905 region, and prices are going up pretty dramatically, even until now in October, where we start coming close to a wrap for the year. So, Brian, anything you want to say about that? Or you want to say about the comparison between the city of Toronto and the 905?
I think it's because they revamped the Pickering Town Center. That's really what has caused all of this. Just kidding. Yeah, I mean, obviously some of this is still the effects of COVID, where people have, a lot of people, and we read about this and hear about this all the time. People are reevaluating their work situation, they're reevaluating their living situation, they're basically reevaluating their life and what they want to be doing. And a lot of people have said, no, I'm not going to sacrifice space of where I'm living anymore for convenience. I'm going to move out to the suburbs, move a little bit further out of downtown. Of course, now because of the virtual world opening up, that's so much more of an option for people where they don't have to worry about commuting into work. I wonder what's going to happen. I did read something about the rebound effect, where a lot of people who had left their job are now coming back, or left downtown are now coming back. So things could shift. But I mean, look at that. Look at the median price there. Right? If you take Durham region as an example, right? 972. Well, that's the lowest median price in that list. All the other ones are up over 1.2 all the way up to 1.8. So Durham had the greatest amount to catch up anyway, right? And that I think is a large part of it. It's just people have finally, affordability drives decisions, right? So there's the most affordable housing in this chart. And therefore, that has driven a lot of people to head out to that particular area, because people like to look for bargains. That's why I can never find a parking space at Costco.
That's right. That's right. And it's funny you say that. I was actually having a conversation earlier today with one of my agents, and we were talking about how, after this crazy growth in the last, year plus, how things kind of start to level off on price points. And look at the average or the median price point in the city of Toronto and compare it to the median price point in 905 region. They're almost the same. It almost costs the same today to buy in Toronto as it does to buy outside Toronto. It never used to be this way, Brian. It never used to be this way. And it's crazy. It's crazy to even consider this. And it's a great opportunity for people to, if you're buy in the best areas, because this is going to change again. The distribution is going to be reshuffled, and it's going to go back to where it was before, with the certain gaps that it was in before. So a great opportunity for people who are looking to buy is to focus in areas that have great value in the past. I think it'll go back to these areas, these price gaps between them. Let's dive a little bit deeper here. Before
hang on, Omar, before you just made a fantastic point, though, that goes back to our video from last week, where we were talking about if people are thinking about getting into the market, it's you use the slogan, if you don't, you won't, right? So a lot of people will be like, oh, well, I've missed the boat, there's no point. But you just hit the nail on the head. Look at the year-over-year percentage raise in Toronto Central was only 3%. So for those people who were ever thinking that they wanted to get into Toronto, like actually buy a property in Toronto, unless you believe that is never going to rebound and Toronto's prices are not going to gain again, there is actually the deflation of the bubble that you've been waiting for, right? If you're looking at prices in the 905 region, yeah, sure, you're going to naturally assume, oh, forget it, like this is the peak of the market. But we are actually seeing prices almost go down in those other areas of Toronto. So if you were, as part of your investment or owning a home, you were wanting to get into Toronto, now actually would be a fantastic time to be considering that, right? Because of what we've seen in that sense. It's one of the slowest growing markets. But is it?
I wouldn't say prices going down, Brian. There is, if you look at the chart, everything is moving upwards in price.
I know. But you know what I mean? Relatively speaking, right? Relatively speaking to, I mean, I know I've had condos in Toronto where it was going up by an average of 10% every single year, compounded, compared to that, right?
Yeah. So let's dive in. Let's dive into the Toronto area first. Let's look at the Toronto West, Central, and East. And a couple of things that I noticed that are very, very interesting for me is look at the growth in the East has been the growth that's leading the way in the sales. It's the one that's growing in the fastest pace between August and October. Also, it's very interesting to see the absorption of these listings in Toronto Centre, just like you said, Brian. Where if you look at the year over year, because last year, October was a very strong month in sales, you'll see that they're all negative numbers on the year over year sales. But the best one, or the fastest region is the Toronto Central. And if you look at the change in months of inventory on the right side of the chart, you'll see it was 2.2, 2.2, and then jumps down to the 1.4 from 2.2. So that's a massive absorption rate. And that's a cue for everybody who's looking that you need to look at the downtown core, because it's starting to move, and it's starting to move very quickly. It's absorbing everything, and the prices are going to start to follow very shortly. The months of inventory in the east side of Toronto are just insane. It's 0.5, which means it's 15 days of inventory. In 15 days, everything in the market would sell out. That's crazy. And if we look a little bit more into the 905 region, you'll see that Durham and Halton are experiencing up to 34 and 37% drop in sales. And it's simply because there are no more property. There's no properties to buy. It's not that there's no demand. It's that the supply is so choked, and that's why you see these massive drops in number of sales. I also noticed that the Durham it's experiencing kind of a leveling off in price growth at the moment. If you look at the last 3 months, it's 972, $1,050,000, $1,030,000 in comparison to the other ones. It's a bit of a leveling off. The York region is also showing substantial growth of similar levels to Halton. They're both leading the way in price. And months of inventory is very, very, very scarce across the board. We have everything except for the center under the 1 month of inventory. So these are crazy numbers, if you ask me. And we'll take.
I'm going to go to the Canadian Tire Christmas sale, buy a shed, and try to sell it as a house in my backyard in Pickering this winter. Because the inventory is crazy.
I wouldn't be surprised if you had a good story, successful story with that next month, Brian. So. Here we look at kind of the movement in these price points. We're looking at price point ranges and in the detached market, and we see that the most dominant growth is happening in the 1.75 to 1.99, which, it's a 52% growth from last year. And it kind of tells us where the market is heading in price over the next few years, right? If you also notice that anything under the 1.25 is showing a negative growth, it's just because prices have gone up so much that less and less properties in that price point exist. So these are a couple of really cool takeaways from the market. If we take a look at the semi and town properties, we're going to go through the same kind of exploration of the sales, prices, and the months of inventory. It's a very similar trend. With small differences, obviously. The months of inventory in the semi in town is even tighter than the detached category. If you look at the numbers over here, you got 0.2s, you got 0.3s. And if we did the outlook, if we took a look at the city of Toronto and compared it to the 905 regions, we'll notice that the city of Toronto is also doing better in number of sales. The city of Toronto is also showing, higher price increases as well. So in the townhouse and semis, both the number of sales and the prices are going up for the city of Toronto. So that's a clear transition in the market towards more centralization, more central properties. It's just all growth, even in the semi and towns. Anything that you want to comment on, Brian?
Well, I know we're going to get into it a little bit more when we look at the condos, but I think this is just a good representation that as detached homes went absolutely rocket ship, people have had no choice but to start to look to alternative forms of housing, right? And that's where, again, like you're seeing these crazy growths, especially in the suburbs, where a few years ago, if people were moving out to the suburbs, the Durham region, the 905 region, they would be immediately looking for a detached home, right? That's what they would want to get. But those have priced themselves out of the market. So now a lot of people are having to look at towns and semis. I know in the area that I live in North Pickering, I moved into a semi 8 years ago. And since I've moved here, I can count on one hand the number of semis they've actually built. But there's probably been 300 to 400 townhomes that have been built around me over that 8-year period. I can't swing a cat without hitting a construction project right now of townhomes. And so, when that starts to happen, that's an indication to us of, aha, this is where we're starting to head. Now, I'm happy because I'm in a semi. So, when it's time for me to sell, I'm going to be able to do well, I hope, because there's not a lot of competition and not a lot of new semis being built. But yeah, it's certainly interesting, and we're going to even dive deeper into that when we get into condos next, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. The only thing that I ask of you, Brian, is don't swing any cats while we're shooting the video over here.
No cats were harmed in the making of this video. I promise. I might have swung a baseball bat, but no cats. I swear.
So let's take a look at the city of Toronto, and one thing that you notice is the central, the central Toronto Central is actually also leading the way in sales and in prices, while Etobicoke, or not Etobicoke, sorry, this Toronto West, which is Etobicoke, is slightly lagging behind. Look at the year over year growth. Everything is negative except for Toronto Central. And again, look at that absorption from minus 11% to 6%. Doesn't that tell you something about the city of Toronto? So wow. That was very fascinating to see. In October, we seem to, doing lots of sales in comparison to the year before. Again, Toronto East is the most scarce in supply in all categories. And if we look at the 905 region, we will see that Halton is showing it's a huge, changes in the last year, moving from minus 28 to 1% in growth. Also huge absorption there, which kind of tells you that Halton townhouses and semis are ramping up. It's showing the most growth in sales right now, Halton. And York and Halton are predominantly the ones that are growing the fastest in the 905 region in price, with Halton having alarming rates of months of inventory at 0.2, which means that everything sells in 5 days, guys. Can you imagine every property in Halton is expected to sell in 5 days because of the months of inventory being so scarce? Just crazy. I've never seen something like that in my 13 years in the business. So that's
a lot of people are getting realtor fridge magnets in their mailbox right now in Halton.
Yeah, I agree with you, Brian. I think that's a trend that we should also include in the stats report. So let's take a look at the condo market. Let's take a look at the condo market here. The trends in the condo market are very different. Months of inventory is highest in the city of Toronto out of all property types. And, the months of inventory in the 905 region are very similar to the months of inventory in the detached market. So the detached market and the condo market in the 905 region are starting to look very similar in supply. Okay, this is a new trend. Both the 905 and the 416 are both appreciating almost at the same pace, both in sales and in prices. And in 416, the central Toronto sales are leading the way. And the increase is crazy. It's 46% year over year, 46% increase in sales. And the absorption, again, from 1.8 to 1.5 tells you that the city of Toronto center is seeing a large increase in sales. And 905, if we look at that, there's a couple of stats that kind of caught my attention. 54% year over year increase in the Peel region. In the condo market, it's actually the fastest condo market in the GTA at the moment. And Halton is the fastest in price increase, 34% year over year in price jumps, with the months of inventory being between 0.7 and 0.8 across the board in the 905. So they're all almost the same months of inventory, if you notice. And since the condo market is, a little bit different than the rest of them, I thought I would focus a little bit more on the condo market and give a little bit more stats. The year-over-year change in the distribution of sales seems to be most prevalent and most dominant in the $800,000 to $899,000 range, Brian, almost at 103% increase.
Wow.
And then me and you have been talking about this for a long time. We've talked about this in previous videos as well. We talked about how we anticipate that the condo market is going to start to move the fastest because of what's going on. If you can look at the chart at the bottom, you'll see that the condo market line is in blue, and you can see it's 13% year over year increase, while this is the number of sales, of course, and while the detached market and the semi-detached market are at minus 29 and minus 21.
I remember when we were talking about this a couple of months ago, the numbers that we had, the blue line, the condo line was at the bottom,
Yep.
but it was the only one that was starting to head up, right?
Yep.
And now we see it crossing over on top of the semis and town homes. The other ones, they're making a little bit of a rebound, but when you look at how much they've gone down, and the condo market has stayed relatively flat and is now starting to even climb. So exactly like you and I talked about. And again, it just comes down to affordability and what's available, right? I know I've been getting emails in my inbox about builders and new projects and pre-construction. There's not a week that goes by that I don't hear about a new project going on. So this is an area that I'm definitely keeping an eye on now, especially as a condo investor, watching, because I'm seeing, right now it's still flattening out, starting to go up. Affordability, baby. This is where people are going to have to head with their real estate dollars if they want to be getting into the market.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I know people are curious about kind of how it's looking like in the condo market, and I have a few slides to share about the condo market in different areas, 3 urban regions. So let's look at this chart first. We're looking at the percentage sales in condos. And you can see 68% of all condo sales happen in the city of Toronto, which is pretty insane, and expected too, right? Second is Peel region, and third is York region. If we look at the distribution of the types, you'll find that the largest number in here is the 2-bedroom. It's the highest sale in 2 bedrooms. The second is the 1+10, and then the third is the 1-bedroom. This is what the market looks like today, but you can't make decisions based on this. You need to go a little bit deeper, and every area has its own distribution. So if we look at the downtown, you'll notice that the distribution is, first of all, it's most prevalent. The most prevalent sales are in the 1 and the 1+10, right? These are the most prevalent ones, with the substantial presence of bachelor sales. Okay, there's a good amount of bachelor sales happening in the downtown core, but the majority of the prices being between the $500,000 to the $800,000 mark. And what's interesting is when you look at properties or condos that are over the million, you see that they start to increase. That's an interesting thing. Now we compare this to North York, and it's a very different picture. We see that North York, the most prevalent sales are 2-bedroom ranges, so they're larger than downtown Toronto. So if you're buying in North York, focus on 2 bedrooms. Don't focus on the smaller condos. With very little presence of bachelors. Bachelors don't do very well in North York, and a large proportionate share of larger units. And with the majority of prices being between the $500,000 to the $800,000 range, with very little sales going over 900, right? So that's how it looks like in North York. And then if we look at Mississauga, also very different picture. We're looking at the most prevalent sales being the 1 and the 1+10s. We're looking at with a lot of the 2 and 2+10 bedrooms sales, and you have no substantial presence of a bachelor sales, with the majority of the prices being between 500 and 600. Very, very narrow price range in Mississauga, but also the most active market in the condo market. So if you have a property in Mississauga that you want to sell, now is a very good time to go on the market, right? So that's the importance of knowing this information, is you know when to go on the market. And very little sales over the $700,000 mark. So very different pictures here. So what did we learn today, right? Brian, tell us what would you want to leave everybody with as a piece of advice?
Well, I think it's first of all, again, we've highlighted this before. There's no such thing as a Canadian real estate market. There's no such thing as an Ontario real estate market. There's no such thing as a GTA real estate market. And this is, again, beating a dead horse. No cats, no horses have been harmed. It's so important to work with somebody who understands the area, who can dive into the data like this. Because if you just watched a video that came up, on your way from the news, and they were talking about the condo market, but you were living in Mississauga, right? And that story was about the condo market in Toronto, you could get really bad information, something that made no sense. You might rush out and buy a bachelor unit because everybody is flooding back to downtowns, and then find out later that you can't rent it, you can't sell it, that sort of thing, right? So this is why it's so important to work with professionals who understand, who can dive into the data, who help you create a plan and then match that what is going on in the market up to that plan. Clearly, we don't have crystal balls. Otherwise, we'd be doing this video from our private island in the Pacific, okay? But the kind of investing that you and I do, and the way we help our clients, is to teach them about a little bit of research, some due diligence, and making good decisions ahead of time. I've had a couple of clients reach out to me recently asking me about projects that they were looking at, and this is exactly the kind of stuff that I quoted to them. Okay, so that would be the advice, is make your decisions based on the data and your plan, not the headlines, not what some salesperson is trying to push on you, right? That's what I would share with people from this. And that's why I love these deep dives so much.
Based on your plan, 100%, Brian. And that's exactly the same advice that I give my clients. I think, based on my experience in the real estate market, Octobers are typically times where the market starts to slow down. And this October, everything is going up. So it tells you the market's very, very strong. And if people are considering to sell their property, if this is part of their plan, this is the right time to do it. This is the right time to secure a great price and certainty, having certainty that you're in a very strong seller market. If this is not a part of your plan, then you shouldn't be selling your condo. If you don't have a transitionary plan, if you're not going to do something with that money, then you should hold on to your condo, right? But if you're thinking within the next 6 months to a year, considering the sale of your property because it fits into your plan, now should be a time where you consider this option with a lot of seriousness, because it is going to be the difference about, you can make a great amount of money if you go in at the right time in the real estate market. And
typically October would not be a month where, I know this, having done this for over 17 years, a real estate agent and a broker would not be telling me in the beginning of November, now's a good time to sell your property. They'd be saying, no, wait, we'll see what's going to happen in the spring market. Everything slows down from Christmas. So again, a great example, don't just listen to people at the water cooler at work or what you happen to read on msn.com, right? It's talk with professionals.
Absolutely. And if you are a first-time buyer, I'm not saying that the market's going to go down. I'm not saying that you should sell because the market's going to crash. But I'm saying if it's a part of your plan, now's a good time for you to get a great price. And for first-time buyers who are thinking about moving up, or people who are wanting to move up, there are signs that the prices are going to continue to go up. So, secure yourself. And with every passing day, it gets more and more expensive for you. So with that being said, I would like to conclude this section of our episodes. And until next week, when we talk about, the emergence of investors into today's market. I hope you guys found a lot of value in this, and I wish you guys all the best.